call the meeting to order for the July 12, 2022 study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Thank you. We're now going to go into current business, and the first items are clarification of items on the consent calendar. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any clarification on these items? Councilman Duffield?
None.
Councilman Dixon?
No.
Councilman Brenner?
No.
Councilman Avery?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum?
I have none.
And I have none as well. So we're going to switch a couple items up for study session. Item number 3 we'll take first. Certificates of appreciation to outgoing board members and commissioners. A couple individuals we're going to be honoring today. Boards of Library Trustee Member Kurt Cost, if you want to come forward. Harbor Commissioner Bill Kinney and Planning Commissioner Peter Coden. Okay, Kurt, you're up first. Could you turn your volume down?
No pressure there, though.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Yeah. Okay, so Kurt, how long were you on the trustees? 18 to 2022?
I was on there for 4 years.
Is there anything you'd like to say before we just give you a quick acknowledgement?
I was very grateful for the time I was able to spend. It's an amazing team on the library with Tim and now Melissa running the ship, and everybody on there was so great to work with, and I was happy to be part of the opening of the new branch in Corona Del Mar and everything that was going on. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on with the library.
Well, we appreciate your service, and you're as young as half of us up here, so we expect to keep you involved.
I'll be back.
Okay,
sure.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come up with a picture for a second. Let me just go on next to Bill. Okay, Bill, nothing controversial you've done at all. On the Harbor Commission, one of the most daunting boards you could be on. Anything you want to say about your, it looks like 8 years?
8 years, and I will say that we have a great commission, and we were able to take a commission that was reactive and make it proactive, and wrapped our arms around some very big issues that may not otherwise have been addressed. So, very proud of that.
Certainly, you guys did a great job, Bill. Thank you. And then, I believe I pronounced your name incorrectly. I'm so sorry about that, Peter. The O is Keating. Keating, thank you. Third time's a charm. Peter, it looks like you were on for 8 years, and obviously you're very well known. You were chairman as well of the Planning Commission. Anything you'd like to say?
I just have to say, after 8 years, I can't say enough about your planning staff. They write the greatest reports, concise but to the point. They help applicants get through the mire of ordinances and details, and are very helpful to the commission. So I think they get an applause. I don't. I just happen to be a gavel hitter twice.
Well, I watched you in action. I thought you were great, and we appreciate your service as well very much. So if anyone can join me on the council, if we like, we'll do a couple photos at the flags and hand certificates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Take one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Look forward to another term down the road.
Okay. One more.
Okay, next we have a proclamation to present to Michelle Steele and her staff for her efforts in getting sand for the beach cities here in Orange County. Is Representative present? Yes, would you like to come forward to the podium? Hi. And it's Sonia, correct? Okay, great. Would you like to say anything before I read the proclamation?
I would, yes. I would absolutely like to say something. Thank you so much for having me here, and for more than that, the fact that our member is not here right now should communicate the level of her work ethic, because she worked really hard for this since the day she took office. She met with Appropriations Committee leaders multiple times a week. She met with the Los Angeles Army Corps, like here at the headquarters, like several times, communicated the urgency of delivering us something as simple but as grand and as necessary as sand. So we've all known that it's her number one priority. It's always has been, and she's so happy. And when we were talking about this, and I can quote her, she was just saying, "Yeah, I know. I said I would get it done, and I did, and I'm so happy to help Orange County." So just that's Representative Steele for you. So thank you for having us, and
Great.
Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for appearing. If you like, I'll read this proclamation, then I'll hand it to you and take a couple pictures. Whereas Representative Michelle Steele ensured that the Surf Sunset and Newport Beach Replenishment Projects funding request was included in the Energy and Water Development and related agency funding bill. Whereas erosion in Orange County's beaches can be traced back to the federal projects in the 1940s. Federal government widened Anaheim Bay and constructed breakwater and jetties to service the new military bases that opened to boost military efforts for the U.S. Pacific Fleet. The U.S. ACE also created flood control projects along 3 local rivers, and breakwaters were constructed to create and protect the Los Angeles Long Beach Harbor. This new construction created narrow beaches up and down the coastline that were now susceptible to extreme erosion. Whereas the U.S. ACE and the federal government, realizing the damage that had been caused, took steps to repair the issue. The project was referred to as the San Gabriel to Newport Bay Beach Renourishment Project, Surfside to Sunset. And today is the Surfside, Sunset, and Newport Beach Replenishment Beach Project, Stage 13. The repair project, done in increments, began in 1964 and saw 8 more project stages through the 1990. The project had a continued partnership between the federal government, which provided 67% of the funding, and the local communities, which provided the remaining 33%. Local cost share was always covered when it was time for a new project stage. And whereas federal budgeting stopped in 2000, which made this recent appropriation all the more important. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Muldoon, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby thank and extend our appreciation and sincere gratitude to Congressman Michelle Steele. Thank you.
And one more. 1, 2, 3.
Councilman Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate that Michelle's actions helped our city in an amazing way. I want to make sure everybody understands and is aware that there were times in the last few winters when the ocean was crashing up against our lifeguard headquarters. Crashing against the building, okay? And we're sandbagging, right, to save this. So you don't see it. A lot of us don't see what results she has helped us with. But honestly, thank goodness she came through. And, I tried my little way, but I needed someone a little more up the ladder, if you will. And she came through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to an item that I believe Councilman Dixon brought forward, the film permit regulation and management. Staff?
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'm Scott Catlett, your finance director. I'm joined by Evelyn Zen, our revenue manager, and we're here to present a presentation on the city's current film permitting practices. So, under the municipal code, we regulate productions that come into the city and film anywhere in the city, be it on the beach, be it in a private home, in commercial areas of the city. This doesn't apply to amateur photography, those sorts of things. It's for commercial enterprises, predominantly TV filming for commercials and reality shows, and a very small amount of feature film filming. Also applies to still photography in commercial instances. And you'll see on the screen there some criteria that are established under which those filming operations have to abide. To give you a sense of the volume of filming that's present in the city, we looked at the last 4 years, and you'll see that there's between 200 and 300 permits per year that we issue. Those dropped a little bit during COVID, as you would expect, but they're rebounding now up into that same range. We also looked to see if there was a concentration of the permits in a particular month, which you'll see there on the right, that it ranges from 8 to 29, but it's not higher in the summer, lower in the winter. It's just particular months where there tend to be higher concentrations. We also wanted to share some information on the types of productions that are in the city. And so you'll see here that the majority, interestingly, are reality shows. And on the right side, you'll see that there's only two that are driving that. One is Selling OC, and the other is the Real Housewives production here in town. So those make up over half of the film permits that we issue. And then you'll see on the right table, it drops off substantially. There's about 12 productions in the last year that filmed more than once, and then the entire rest of the number of productions was a one-time operation that came into the city and then left. So in terms of what our actual policy is, you'll see here the criteria that we have, and in a minute I'll show you some survey data from some peer cities that we looked at to show you how this contrasts with some other cities. We allow filming from 7 to 9, and that's 7 days per week, so it's the same on the weekend as on weekdays. We don't have any restrictions on particular areas of the city or the frequency with which a production can film. We do require that if there is filming done, that we notify all businesses and residences within 500 feet. So that goes out to make sure that the surrounding folks are aware this production is coming. We also do not currently have any blockout times or locations, which some cities do. And then with parking, we require that productions either use private facilities or that they use our city lots, and if they use our city lots, they pay the same rate that a normal customer would pay for those lots. In terms of our process, we contract with a company called Film LA, which operates the filming permitting process for the city of Los Angeles, so they're sort of the big company that does this work in Southern California. And they charge fees, you'll see them there on the screen, for processing those permits. They do all of the legwork on behalf of the city, and then when that permit process is complete, they bring that package to the staff and finance. We take a look at it, and we charge a small fee for our review, and then approve that permit for issuance. In terms of why we use Film LA versus using staff, as I mentioned, they're experts. They also have on-site monitors, which are folks that we can deploy at our request that are on-site at the production to make sure that they follow the terms of their permit. And with the 500-foot notification requirement, you'll see when I show you the other cities, that's also helpful because some cities don't do that, and that provides that notification in advance. And then in instances where they're larger productions, we do bring out police and fire, other resources based on the recommendations of those departments. So we wanted to look also at complaints to see what volume of complaints are coming in to both staff and Film LA. And in the last year, we've had 4 complaints received by the city, or 5, complaints received by the city or Film LA. You'll see those there. All 4 of them that were residential in nature were resolved to the residents' satisfaction once they contacted staff. The commercial one, some of the council members may recall, there were some concerns with a large production that was on the Balboa Peninsula, and I don't think that was resolved, but the production was successful. Ultimately, the staff that were out there and the police and fire resources kept traffic moving and made that, I think, successful from our perspective. So again, based on discussions with Film LA, we're looking at in the ballpark 4 to 6 complaints per year over the last 4 years, and that's out of 200 to 300 permits. This is small print. I'm just going to talk generally about this, but I wanted to put it up there in the copies you have. Right now, we have fairly general requirements in terms of what criteria they have to meet. They have to meet the terms of the conditions of approval, and then theoretically, we could revoke a permit if they did not meet those terms. Staff's not aware of ever having revoked a permit that's been issued, but we could theoretically do that. Some of our other permits, and the example I have here is for sound amplification permits, have some more teeth in them where we can actually revoke the permit and then prevent them having a permit for a certain period of time, and they do provide some more concrete examples of what would constitute a reason to revoke a permit. But again, since we have not revoked any, haven't needed that language to date. So this is probably really the most interesting data that we've prepared for you to look at today, and this is looking at, you'll see the list down the left of other cities along the beaches, as well as Pasadena, which I believe Councilmember Dixon mentioned, and so we looked at their permitting, and I've highlighted in red in each case here the most restrictive of the cities that we surveyed, just to give you a sense of where we stand in that. So on time of day, Laguna Beach is the most restrictive. They in permitted filming activities at 5:30 versus we go till 9 p.m. There are two cities, Pasadena and Malibu, that limit frequency, and I'll get to that on the next slide. And then the notification requirement, we're at the most stringent end of that at 500 feet. You'll see some of the others don't require it, or they have 300 feet. Again, Laguna Beach is the most restrictive relative to times of year. You'll see there they essentially do not allow filming during the busy season in the summers. In terms of parking, we're again the most restrictive with requiring private parking as well as parking with city lots. And you'll see on the right that we are unique outside of LA in using Film LA, which, as I mentioned earlier, really provides kind of an enhanced level of service both to the citizens and to the folks that are doing the filming. So if we want to look at restrictions and what those look like, Pasadena has a limit of 6 days per quarter and 24 days per year versus commercial 15 and 60. They do allow a conditional use permit process to get around that requirement. Malibu has a limit of 16 days per year, which can go up to 20 with consent of residents, and then they have an appeal process to their planning commission. So the final thing I wanted to share is that we looked at what this would look like if it was done in our city. And so the three most frequently used sites in the last 4.5 years we looked at are listed here. And you'll see two of these are public spaces along the beaches. The third one is a commercial zoned area, and I believe that was a reality show filming location. So on the residential side, kind of honing in on that where it might affect our residents, there are three here that are the most frequently used this year to date. And again, these are all filming locations for reality shows. So if we went through and implemented the Pasadena policy, there would have been 3 locations over the period we looked at that would have exceeded that, and you'll see those here. So that's 3 over the course of that full 4-year period. But nothing in the commercial or parks and recreation zones would have exceeded that criteria. Under the Malibu policy, there would be no residential locations that would be subject to the limitations. But on the commercial side, you'll see here that there would be 6 that would have been subject to the 16, and then with consent of surrounding neighbors, there would be 2 left that would have exceeded the 20. And those, again, were public locations at Inspiration Point and on the beach. Final thing I wanted to just illustrate is what happens when we do that notification process. So you'll see here an example of the pamphlets that are distributed to all of the neighboring homes and businesses. And this has not only contact information for Film LA, which is a 24-hour hotline, also has contact information for city staff and the details on what the criteria are that they're supposed to be abiding by in terms of street closures, parking, and so on, to make sure that the residents are informed of what's going to happen there. And we do have a website now where folks can see those film permits. So if anyone goes to the city's website, we have the Film Newport Beach site, and it's a searchable database. So if you see filming, you can go there, type in a street address, and it'll tell you whether that's a permitted activity. With that, we have some questions on the screen here if the council would like to discuss this in further detail, and we're happy to answer those questions and to be available for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions from the dais. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Scott. Excellent work, and Evelyn, too. Thank you for pulling all this together. As you know, we had some residents in Peninsula Point who had some issues. I don't think they're here. They were going to try to come with the frequency was over the Christmas holidays and then extended into January, February, I think. And so it just became a burden. And then I hadn't been aware. I think over the years I've heard a couple small complaints. So thank you and thank the council for agreeing to bring this forward. I think our current policy is very good, and you've explained that, and comparatively speaking with other cities, I'd be interested if there was one commercial use that created a lot of complaints by one retail merchant in Balboa Village. I think the email between the two of us, I encouraged him to come today, but he couldn't get away. He was he was not happy with the suspension of business for a limited period of time during the filming that was in Balboa Village, whereas other merchants were okay when I spoke with them, but this gentleman was not. And some residents were not okay. No one has expressed opposition at all to filming. It's just really modification on the margins of what we do, and that's why I appreciate how you compared with other cities. As we go forward, I don't know if we're going to hear from anybody, but given the high number of filming by a few of the TV shows or TV programs, I think we could put some limits on it, perhaps, such as what Pasadena or Malibu does, maybe on the hours. We do go into 9 p.m., I think 7 p.m., maybe something also during the holidays, Christmas holidays, and also during the busy summer months. Again, I don't want to discourage this. It's not a big revenue producer for the city at all, but we have a beautiful city and we should want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see it. But I am sensitive to the commercial impacts as well as the residential impacts, and I'd be interested to hear what anyone else has to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
Thank you, Mayor. So as I look through kind of the number of permits we've gone through and the number of complaints we've received, and it kind of feels like the main reason we're even addressing this is because, we did have an angry business owner that felt like this was detracting. I tend to look at the longevity of something like this rather than the short term, that it might be great to see pieces of Newport in feature films and other TV shows. I think it only adds to the allure of who we are and one of the greatest cities on this planet. And so, I feel like we have a great handle on this already. I don't think we need more restrictions. Actually, I'm pretty opposed to any more restrictions we would put on this, as and I think in the course of the time I've been up here, and I can't speak for everyone else up here, but I don't think we've had a big issue with this in general. Maybe just one person that didn't necessarily feel like it was a benefit to him for a sales weekend. And I get it. I mean, we've actually done a decent amount of some of these permits, as people have requested them. And for the reality series and things like that, you keep up business as normal. They deal with their own piece. Really, I think it's something that if we can get more people to see how beautiful Newport is, I think that's a benefit. I don't think it's a deterrent. If businesses, and speaking from a business side, if we're showcased more on a national stage, I think that benefits the city in general. I don't think larger restrictions are anything we're looking for in the city, especially since we haven't had real problems with necessarily the residents, and really it's been a single case. And in this case, the squeaky wheel is not necessarily the mindset of the rest of the city, and especially looking at the data that you guys put forth. And thank you so much for this. I mean, this was above and beyond. But really, at this point, I think we're right where we need to be. So thank you.
Councilwoman Brenner.
Yes, Scott, I was interested in how the other cities compare to us in their permit fees, and whether it's more advantageous to them to have someone in their city doing this. I'm not opposed to it. In fact, it's something we've always had, and two of the most used of the top three are in my district. But throughout the years, it's been kind of fun when you see somebody filming and you see some stars down there and can stand on the periphery and watch that. So, but it's not in my district. It's not as problematic as I could see it being on the peninsula, because it's maybe closer to some residences and also is more of a traffic room. So does what we make on this pay for the inconvenience as well as the extra cost by emergency personnel?
So for the fee we charge for the permit, that's the city's fee, and then those other cities that don't use Film LA, those are user fees that are cost recovery based. So we're just recovering the cost of the staff that are processing the permit. In the case of police or fire, they're billing out again at a cost recovery rate. So they're charging them for the hourly rate of those officers that are in the field. So there's no profit or extra funds that come to the general fund. It's purely cost recovery.
It's something sort of worth looking at, though, because if we are causing inconvenience to our citizens, by doing this, and it's a business expense for these production companies, then it might be something that we should look at from that standpoint. None of the rest of us get to use and live here for free, so I'm not sure that shouldn't be something that we consider in the future. That's it.
Okay. So the request to speak on the dais will go out to the public on this item. Do you have any comments on this item? Now is a chance to be on reality TV.
All three viewers.
Okay. Seeing none, we're coming back to the dais. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you. I'm really just trying to be sensitive to the residents on the peninsula, and there are not many, admittedly. I'm just trying to be sensitive to the fact that there was repeated filming and they were not using public parking, so they were using the street parking. That became an issue. I think I remember them saying on street cleaning day, and parking was a problem. So I wouldn't say it's intense level of inconvenience, but inconvenience of a low to moderate level. Maybe the holiday weekends. How many filming episodes have been filmed on Memorial or Labor Day?
I don't have that data in front of me. We could certainly get it for you, but I would assume it's some small percentage, if any.
Yeah, those are obviously busy days of the year. Well, I'm kind of betwixt and between because we always like to be responsive to the residents, but if the residents aren't making any kind of comment, it's hard for me to advocate on their behalf, other than I do know that the commercial business in Balboa Village was quite disturbed, and that was on a busy spring day. And so his point in the emails that he was writing is, why are we allowing on a Saturday, I believe it was, on their busiest, one of the two busiest days of the week, why would we allow filming to shut down businesses? Admittedly, it was for a short period of time. So maybe weekend filming in the season. March technically isn't the season, but to be responsive. I just hate to shut down any merchant who has it impacted his business. His email said his revenues were down 40 to 60% during that filming period. I'd certainly be welcome to hear any other opinions from anybody, but it doesn't sound like anybody's really wanting to do it.
Could I ask a question, Diane?
Sure.
I'm wondering if it would be possible for us to leave this to the discretion of our staff to try to make sure that it's not being done during times that would seriously inconvenience our public or our businesses. So
how do we define that, though?
Well,
They need
I mean,
guidance.
like I am thinking weekends might be problematic if it's during the summer, but during the winter it might not be. Although people of our residents who are riding their bikes down on the boardwalk and walking on the boardwalk would be impeded by that almost any weekend that we don't need anything else. Or maybe there's certain zones that you don't allow them to impede traffic.
If I could just add, just briefly, those film permits are issued with conditions of approval, and there is sort of a catch-all that allows for additional conditions to be added if it's going to impact the public health, safety, or welfare. So there is a little bit of flexibility already in the municipal code that's there, and so I think that might be something that they can be cognizant when they're issuing the permits if there's going to be some type of impact.
Well, I accept that, but on this particular filming in March in Balboa Village, the filming company was not restricted in any way, really. So how do we give guidance to staff to be more mindful of those kinds of impacts, potential impacts?
Well, that particular filming was an unusual one. It was a major motion picture, and we did have a police presence there. One of my staff members was there. We had a Film LA monitor there, and they were required under the conditions of approval to reopen the boardwalk other than when they were doing a live take. So pedestrians were going back and forth through that filming location except for when the cameras were rolling, and my understanding that was for just a few minutes, and then there was a gap of, I don't remember the numbers, but 20 minutes between takes during the time they were there. So I think the impact was about as minimal as it could be without denying the permit in that instance.
Who paid for the police to be there?
The production company paid the reimbursement for all the staff on site.
Okay. I'm wondering if we could just table this maybe and encourage residents and business owners to engage in this and let us know how they feel and not take any action today.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Just a quick comment from Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
Well, I made it down to that filming because I had talked to that same business owner and talked to a number of other people in Balboa Village. And the overwhelming opinion of most of the business owners in the village was this was a great thing. This wasn't a bad thing. Yeah. And so this is, I get back to this point that there's always going to be a complaint. Our answer can't be to run to the complaint to change policy. I think we have staff doing an amazing job. I think when I watched the filming going on, I thought the residents were excited to be there. A bunch of them were watching. It didn't seem like it was an impediment to anything going on in the area. And, I hate adding more staff hours, more dollars, and more work to go to an issue that is a non-issue. And I mean, that's really how I feel about this, that we don't have an issue with filming in this city. We're not having major production companies in trying to take over areas or streets or entire districts. Really, we had one major film in however long. If this becomes something, I'd be willing to look at it again. But at this point, I think our policy is sound. I think what we're doing, and especially what Scott's department is doing, is unbelievable. I think we're right where we need to be, and I'd like to just kind of keep moving forward with the same thing unless we have another issue, and maybe bring it back up at that time. But I hate to look at this because we had one complaint, even though we had a bunch of business owners and a bunch of residents that were happy about this.
I had 2 complaints, but I agree with you. I should say let's table it and give others an opportunity to communicate with me or the mayor and let us know how they feel. But we've surfaced this issue, and if there's a demand to make any changes, I'm sure they'll let us know.
Is now the time to request a formal permit offering to Weekend at Bernie's too?
I think they're filming it in the Democratic Party right now.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Oh, they made a second? Okay, three.
Could I just say, though, I appreciate you bringing this forward because I think it's interesting for us to know that this is happening in our city and what the parameters are.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I'm pleased when Scott and Evelyn laid all this out. I was pleasantly surprised that we are managing this in an effective way, and we do have guardrails and to protect the residents and business owners. And like I say, let's just table it and see if this draws any other interest. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I saw the complaints too, Councilwoman Dixon, and I thought the individuals seemed pretty upset with a couple individuals. I'm glad it wasn't as bad as they thought, but I saw them too.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, staff. That's interesting. Okay, now it's time for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Please come forward.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. I noticed that as one of the items on the closed session agenda, you are going to be asked in a few minutes to make a decision, apparently to accept or reject an offer of $1.6 million from the Monsanto company as the result of a nationwide settlement of a class action lawsuit. Which had to do with that company's manufacture of a chemical called PCBs that have become a serious environmental contaminant. And if you do nothing, you will be accepting the settlement and promising to file no separate claims against Monsanto. The comment I wanted to make is I believe the staff has known that this settlement offer was coming for several months. And I would have thought it would have been useful to, since we have a water quality committee, to have scheduled a public discussion of how much exposure we have currently and expect in the future to clean up of PCBs. I know that they're one of the contaminants that is found in the harbor sediment and can lead to expensive disposal, such as the confined aquatic disposal system that we are proposing for the next major dredging. However, as near as I could tell from the EIR, the PCBs are not the main driver of that because they're relatively rare, and where they occur, that sediment is already contaminated with other things that would require the more expensive disposal. But anyway, my comment is I think the public discussion of our exposure to PCB cleanup would have been useful, especially since we have a committee that deals with things of that sort. And that would have illuminated in your discussion whether 1.6 million is a fair settlement, or as some other jurisdictions believe, it's really just a small pittance compared to the total cost the city or other cities may be facing to clean up this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, seeing no other requests to speak, Mr. Hart, we have a closed session announcement.
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. The City Council will adjourn a closed session to meet with the city's real property negotiators regarding negotiations with Evan Planto with the American Legion regarding the American Legion's lease with the city, and to instruct the real property negotiator regarding price and terms of payment, and to meet with the city's legal counsel regarding the case titled City of Long Beach versus Monsanto Company. All is set forth on the agenda under item number 4A and B. Councilmember Brenner will be recusing herself from the real property negotiations based on her involvement as an auxiliary with the American Legion. Thank you.
Thank you. Recess till the 5:30 regular meeting. Call the meeting to order for the July 12, 2022 regular city council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. There's no closed session report this evening.
Thank you. Now the time for invocation, brought today by Sayed Mustuf Al-Kaz Wanil from the Islamic Education Center of Orange County.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Mayor Kevin Muldoon, City Council members, greetings. Please join me as we pray for the beautiful city of Newport Beach and its people. O Lord, we pray to you to bless our great city of Newport Beach and its surroundings. O Lord, allow us all to care for one another and help the city grow in happiness and goodness. O Lord, allow us all to uphold the values of our great nation by maintaining family, peaceful and caring neighborhoods, education, jobs, healthcare, safety, security, civil rights, and liberties for all people. O Lord, allow us to uphold the spirit of our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. O Lord, we pray to you to continue to guide us to establish justice for all people, regardless of their races, colors, or religions. O Lord, bestow upon us wisdom and farsightedness, so as to place the interests of our country before our own personal interests. Our Lord, allow our elected officials to serve the interests of all people and to bring unity, harmony, and prosperity to our nation. O Lord, we ask you to bless the United States of America and to help this nation to be a shining example of peace, equality, justice, and harmony. Amen.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Dixon, would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. Please put your hand over your heart so we could honor the flag of the greatest country in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, notice of the public.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now is the time for council announcements or reports from council members on committee activities and the time for council members to request an A1 item be placed on a future agenda. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any announcements or reports?
Junior lifeguard picnic in the park was phenomenal. The program is going very well this year. I was able to attend the Mariners Park Parade on the 4th of July. We have a TCA board meeting this Thursday and Ben Carlson Foundation dinner on Friday. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Dixon. Councilman Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick 4th of July harbor update. Everything went smoothly. Our harbor master reported no big incidences. So that was a lot of people out there. And I think it helped to have an offset non-weekend 4th of July. That was very helpful. People had to get to work. So anyway, I also want to do a quick shout out to a local resident who deserves a big thank you. Rick Caruso, politics aside, I'm neither here nor there. His contribution to that day of fireworks is extraordinary. And I watched from my vantage point the dunes and his fireworks. And I have to say, I love the dunes. They were a close second. His were unbelievable. And to have a resident do that, in all the years I've lived here, I've never seen anyone step up like that. And for the pure enjoyment of us all. And good fun, clean fun is amazing. I have to say, he's deserving of a big thank you. So thanks, Rick.
Councilwoman Dixon.
I concur with that wholeheartedly. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a number of announcements. So July 4th in our city, I think, was another great day. And I enjoyed the parade and on the Balboa Peninsula, and it was always a fun day, always fun. I attended this by Zoom, SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments Regional Council monthly meeting, and the important announcement at that meeting was that the governor has recently signed SCAG's proposed Senate Bill 197 that extends the deadline for cities with an approved housing element an additional 3 years until 2025 to rezone their city. And Mr. Jurgis, do you want to just add a little bit of commentary to what that means for Newport Beach?
So thank you. Yes. So that is good news for the city of Newport Beach. So the new bill extends the deadline to February 2025. There is a caveat, though, is that the caveat is that the city of Newport needs to get certified and readopted by October of this year. So we're currently, our 4th draft of the housing element is currently pending with HCD, and we're waiting for comments in late August. So it's going to be a tight turnaround. We're optimistic that we will get certified. So our goal is to get certified by October so we could take advantage of SB 197.
That's very good. Thank you very much. July 18th, next Monday, we have an aviation committee meeting, and July 19th, I think I have a slide on this, I have a town hall at Marina Park Tuesday, July 19th at 5:30 p.m. And here is, we'll have the updates on public safety, public works, Southern California Edison, and some power investments that they are making on the peninsula, community development, and Mark will tell us about the drought and how we're doing there. So I do want to make some other comments on a different subject. Last meeting, June 28th meeting, we all voted on appointments to boards and commissions, and I just want to take a few minutes to comment on the appointments made at that meeting. First, some history. 7 years ago, when I first joined the council, a group of women who have served on one of our city boards or commissions joined me in pledging to work to change the unbalanced composition that existed at that time of our boards and commissions. At that time, only about 20% of the commission appointments were filled by women appointees. I looked into this and determined that women comprised a small percentage of the applicants for appointments. So this is a situation that doesn't exist because of discrimination of any kind, as much as that women are not applying for these appointments. So this group of women and myself formed Women in Newport Networking as an informal group of women serving to educate and inform women to apply for these appointments. Over the next several years, Women in Newport Networking had annual forums prior to the formal request for applications by the city clerk to create awareness and encourage women to apply for these appointments, and they did apply. Not surprisingly, the percentage of women then submitting applications increased from the low 20% of total applications received in 2015 to 43%, 47%, then back down to 40% after COVID, and then dropped to 33% this year, back to where we were 7 years ago. This lowest number in 7 years was disappointing and may have been the result of a number of factors: fewer public gatherings because of COVID to inform residents of the opportunity to apply, or the fact that there are only a few openings on our boards and commissions every year. I don't know for sure, we haven't done a study, but there are these factors. The consequence of low applications this year, only 20 applications from women, resulted in only 5 women being nominated by the ad hoc committee, and only 3 women were reappointed to their committee assignment. These 3 women, very capable women, were incumbents seeking reappointment. So that's terrific. They're serving now their second term. That's all good. But the real concern I have is that not a single woman was appointed to begin service on one of our city's boards or commissions. And this is disturbing to me. How could this be? One nominee had applied to serve on the Planning Commission at least 4 times in the last 7 years and has ably served in other city volunteer capacities, including 3 times on our general plan committees, and she was denied her appointment, the appointment. Another woman was the nominee for Harbor Commission. This was her first application for this prized appointment. It is hard to get an appointment to many of our boards and commissions on the first time against other candidates who had applied in prior years. I voted for her. She received only 1 vote on the first ballot and 1 vote on the second ballot. I hope she applies again and again. And that's my key message. That's what it takes for our Harbor Commission or any of our commissions that are in demand. Bottom line, we all need to do better. Women make up 51.7% of our city's population, nearly 52%. There are 44,000 women in our community, yet only 20 women in total applied this year. 41 men applied. These are prized appointments. Yes, there is a waiting list, if you will. I tell men and women that if at first you don't succeed, try again. Repeated applications, which are active for 2 years and can be renewed, are positive. It shows your commitment and interest. Some Harbor Commission appointments take about 5 years of trying and reapplying. We need to do better to communicate to our residents that service on our boards and commissions is important to inform the City Council's policymaking that touches every part of our city's governance: libraries, civil service, fire safety, parks, finance, harbor, land use, and development. We need our residents, men and women, to be involved. But my clarion call really is for women to pay attention to your city. Attend meetings of our commissions and boards. Our city belongs to all of us, and we need the larger half of our population to be part of the policy-making recommendations that affect all of us. Next year, I hope, and I'll be gone, so this message I hope will ring, maybe Ms. Brenner can carry forward next year. I hope we see a resurgence of applications from women and men, and we need everyone to be actively involved in our community. And I encourage more than 40 men and more than 20 women could be applying to our boards and commissions. So thank you for indulging me in that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I think Lauren Kleiman broke that ceiling by being the first female commissioner in 30 years. So it's a good start. I know Will is a supporter of Antonella for planning for Harbor as well. I had to call Antonella and tell her that I was just too close to Jordan. It was tough. But okay, great. Councilman Brenner.
Yes, I was out of town for a portion of the last 2 weeks, so didn't do as much, but I did attend a strategic planning session with several of our citizens and the Newport Beach Film Festival. and Todd and Greg and their consultant. And the thing that I found interesting about that, I didn't realize that they told me there were 4,000 volunteers from Newport Beach that work with the film festival. And that I was amazed by, but would like to encourage any of our citizens who don't feel like they are as involved in that or know as much about it as they would like to volunteer with that group, because it's really an amazing week and lots going on that we maybe don't even know about. I also met with a group regarding the Rotary Club International's event that they're having on September 9th, 10th, and 11th. They're doing an event for Rotary Club presidents from all over the country, and they're very involved. The Rotary Club International is very involved in environmental issues. They're doing it on water in Newport Beach, and I think they've talked to you, Kevin, about getting on your schedule for one of the events that they have coming up. But that will be interesting. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The other thing is I attended the first meeting last night of the General Plan Update Committee, and it was very sparsely attended, as we've experienced a lot of times in the past with our various efforts to outreach to the community. And I just want to say to everyone, this is critically important to the future of our city, that people get out there and participate in these activities regarding our general plan, because that's what we use as the roadmap for how we proceed forward for the next 20 years in the city of Newport Beach. So we will be making sure that we get the dates out for those upcoming meetings. And anyway, it's a super important effort. Then I also wanted to announce that on Wednesday, July the 13th, we have Speak Up Newport is doing an event here in the community room at 5:15 for the reception and 6 o'clock for the program, and it's about all the burglaries and activities that we've been having in the community. And there's sort of a disconnect between we feel like we're pretty safe. We know the numbers say we're pretty safe, but there's a perception in the community that there's a lot going on in terms of burglaries and illegal activities. So this is an opportunity for citizens to come, meet with representatives from our police department, and really get the straight scoop on what is going on and what you can do to make yourself even safer than you already are. So it's a really important event. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Avery, Councilman Avery.
Thank you. I have none.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
Thank you. I attended the water quality entitlements management meeting where we got to discuss Duffy's water wheel, which will soon be there. Yeah, Duffy's wheel. It'll be in place a couple years, I'm sure, after he's gone. But it's been a pretty quick process for him. I think it's going to be 9, possibly 10 years before Coastal Commission allows that to go through to collect trash coming down the waterway. But it's great to see there was a good amount of community support in that, and really just how clean our harbor is right now. I think that was one of the amazing things about this last meeting, that we're doing an amazing job. We're very much on top of it. And I also wanted to thank both fire and police for the exemplary job they did on the 4th. I did spend a good amount of time on the peninsula that day, and then also watching the fireworks in Big Canyon, and I could also see the other 6 shows going on around Orange County. But it was amazing. Everything looked smooth. People were enjoying themselves. There was a lot of people out. There were a lot of people back out, and it just felt like one of the most controlled 4ths I've seen in a long time. So I really, thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate what you guys do out there. Thank you.
Thank you. My favorite part about the Coastal Commission meeting is that after the city of Newport Beach is a pioneer in the water wheel, and we're the first on the West Coast, correct? Mm-hmm. This commissioner graciously said that Newport Beach should be doing more, which it's like the joke of the Coastal Commission. And these individuals who are appointed, and they don't encourage those cities, who they almost kind of reprimand or talk down to the ones who are leading, and then the bad actors don't hear anything at all. Okay, could I see a slide, please, for the movie in the park? Okay, movie in the park speaks for itself. Hope you'll join us. There are the dates. We've got Buffalo Hills Park for July 15th, and it's hosted by a Recreational Senior Service Department. And the event will include crafts and games for kids, and the Croods, which my son is not watching that one yet, so I don't have it memorized, but I'm sure I will soon when he discovers it. And there's activities kick off at 7 p.m. with the movie starting promptly at sundown. Let's see. I think I was honored to be a guest on the Old Glory Boat Parade, which is led by our veterans in the American Legion. And actually, have we had a council meeting since then? I think we have. No, we have not. Okay, it just feels like, yeah. So it was a great 4th of July. I got some complaints. The fireworks were not loud enough at the dunes. And so we got one suggestion that we do these silent fireworks, which I guess they do in Italy, which I don't think ever had a revolution against the British Empire. So I don't really find it to be analogous. But it was a great 4th of July, and it was great to celebrate our freedoms here in Newport Beach. Okay, now on to matters which council members have asked to be placed on a future agenda, and this is not a discussion item. I'm going to have Ms. Brown read this one out.
Okay, this item comes from Councilmember Dixon. It's to consider to ensure diversity of opinions and to avoid the appearance of a conflict, consider adopting a resolution amending City Council Policy A2, which is boards, commissions, and committees, to discourage the appointment of a person to a permanent board or commission where, 1, the person supervises or is supervised by another member of the permanent board or commission, or 2, the person is a member of the same household as another member of the permanent board or commission. All those in favor? That would be Mayor Muldoon and Council Members Brenner, Avery, and Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please read the notice regarding public comments on consent calendar.
This is a time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 11. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce related to items 1 through 11?
I'll lodge a no vote on 3.
Thank you, Councilman Duffield. Councilwoman Dixon.
I have none.
Councilwoman Brenner.
None.
Councilman Avery.
I have none.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
I have none.
And I have none myself. Mayor Pro Tem Blum, do you have a motion?
I do. I'd like to move the changes to the minutes and lodge a no vote on item 3 for Councilmember O'Neill.
And move the balance of the consent calendar?
Thank you.
I second. Public comments on items number 1 through 11, please come forward now.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. Despite the rather sparse public turnout tonight, there are several items of consequence on the consent calendar, and it's kind of unfortunate they go by without anybody knowing that they're coming before you. One of those is the 2 high bids that were received on the junior lifeguard building contract, for which staff is recommending, and apparently you're going to approve restarting that project and putting it out for bid again. There is also the extension of the tennis club development agreement, which Councilmember O'Neill is voting against, and has some problems that I pointed out to you in writing that I hope will be resolved when that matter comes back with a new proposal for that site. And then I think of considerable consequence is the certification of the June 7th election results, at which the people of Newport Beach voted on Measure B. First comment about that, I think at some point it would be very useful for a clear accounting of how much that election actually cost the city of Newport Beach rather than the people campaigning, because the question of whether we should hold special elections often comes up. The very few of us who attended last night's meeting of the General Plan Update Steering Committee, its initial meeting, learned that the staff is going to be recommending in 2 years that we hold a special election in connection with the new general plan update, and it would be useful to know how much that will cost us. We have this experience now from just holding a special election. And then far more important than that is the many open questions that have resulted from Measure B. A majority of you expressed displeasure with the way the council agenda is currently set. You thought there was too much staff influence in it, not enough public determination of what goes on the council agenda. I have looked at other cities. There are numerous. There are about as many different ways of setting agendas as there are city councils in California, and that is totally within your purview to change that if you wish. So if you are dissatisfied with that, I encourage you to have a discussion about it and find a better way to set our council agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the dais. We have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for item 3, ordinance number 2022-16, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending the development agreement between the City of Newport Beach and Gulf Realty Fund. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. Public comments on non-agenda items. If there are any, please come forward.
Mayor O'Neill and members of the council, I think you just heard my name, and I would like to expand on a comment that I made at your last meeting, which was about the fact that the City of Newport Beach will be holding an election on November 8th of this year, at which the people will be asked to vote on 4 of the council seats. Since your last meeting, I would like to point out that the city clerk has set up a very nicely designed web page about the coming election, which people can find by on the city's homepage, looking under government, and they will find a link to the November 8th election. And it's a beautiful page that provides all the information about that. You will find on it a button that says running for city council. If you click that button, you will find that starting on Monday, a 4-week, month-long window will open at which people can file to run for city council. Problem at the moment, kind of like what Councilmember Dixon was pointing out with a lack of applicants for the boards and commissions. At this upcoming election, we have 4 council seats open, but in 3 of those seats, as of today, only a single person has expressed any interest in filing to fill that seat in the future. At least for me, it's very disconcerting when I get a ballot and it has a single name that you can choose. It kind of, I mean, we wonder why people don't vote if you only have one person to vote on. What is the point of voting? So I would very much encourage people who live in those 3 districts to consider filing during the month-long window that they have to do so. And I certainly hope that they will, to keep things interesting in Newport Beach and not have a very dull ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Susan Skinner, and I'm here to be sure that the City Council is aware of actions that are being taken on your behalf, and to ask that you ensure that the city follows the municipal code with regard to the recently approved 292-foot condo tower on the Marriott Newport Center site. To educate those who are not aware of this, the city has approved a high-rise condo tower in Newport Center, which will replace part of the Marriott Tower. A year ago, the council gave the planning director permission to allow hotel rooms to be converted into dwelling units. Many of us felt that this action was in violation of the municipal code, which required that such a conversion be equivalent with regard to development impacts. Replacing a single hotel room with a 7,500 square foot condo is not exactly equivalent, but the statute of limitations has passed to challenge this particular decision. On May 12, the Planning Commission used this planning director's determination as the basis to approve the high-rise tower. There is a process to follow in approving a project like this, and the city has not followed that process. The general plan allows only hotel rooms at that site, and only a general plan amendment can change that. The municipal code is very clear that in the case of a conflict between the planning director's determination and the general plan prevails. The local coastal plan does not allow dwelling units at the Marriott site, but there is a process to allow that. This is not just Susie Skinner making these statements. The Coastal Commission has written 3 very strong letters to the city stating the same thing, which the city has ignored. The municipal code gives any resident the right to appeal a planning commission decision to the full city council, which Jim Mosier did. He met all of the legal requirements of the appeal, but the city rejected his appeal, claiming that what he was really appealing was the planning director's determination from a year ago. Jim is not appealing the planning director's determination, but the actual planning commission decision on this specific project. Jim and I both corrected this misperception, but despite statutory language stating that the city, quote, shall appear the appeal, the city refuses to do so. The lawyer that I have consulted is appalled by this action and tells me that there is absolutely no legal justification for this decision. The city is well aware of this, but knows that it will take a lawsuit to force them to follow our own municipal code, and they refuse to budge. I interpret this as a manifestation of the power and influence of the developer, whom I expect will make around $100 million on this project. My ask is that the City Council require the appeal to be scheduled and heard as required by the municipal code. The residents of Newport Beach have a right to expect that the law will be followed without having to file a lawsuit to ensure that our rights are upheld. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comments on non-agenda items and go on to public hearings. Item 12, staff.
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon and City Council Member Simone Georges, your Community Development Director, and with me is Ben Zadiba, who is our Senior Planner. This is in regards to SB 9. If you recall, about last year in November, we had a study session hearing with you, and we asked you several questions of how do you want us to approach SB 9. And the feedback we got from the City Council is comply with state law, but be as restrictive as possible. And that's what we have done for you this evening. So Ben, I'm going to turn over to Ben. He's going to go ahead and make a brief presentation talking about what you can and cannot do under SB 9, and we'd like your feedback. Tonight is the introduction of the ordinance. And if there's no further changes, we'll come back for the adoption at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Simone. Good evening, Mayor Muldoon, City Council members. Ben Zadiba with the Planning Division. I do have Jaime Murillo at my side in case there are some more in-depth technical questions that I cannot answer. So brief background, just to remind you, I know there's a ton of legislation coming through, so a quick refresher. SB 9 essentially allows 2 provisions as of January 1st of this year, and they are SB 9 housing development, which allows a 2-unit development on a single family lot, and then an urban lot split, which can be done in conjunction with the first provision to allow a subdivision of 1 single family lot into 2 lots, and then effectively 2 units on each of those lots for a total of 4, where there's only 1 allowed previously. So starting with our first interaction with you, November 30th of last year, the study session Simone mentioned. Then we took it to Planning Commission for study session in April of this year, and we went to hearing May 26th. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval with 1 abstention of the ordinance that you have before you for consideration this evening. One thing I would like to note is that in between November 30th and April 12th, staff was waiting on the State Department of Housing and Community Development to release their fact sheet for implementation guidance. And again, that came out in March of 2022. So staff wanted to see that before finalizing our draft ordinance, which again, was recommended unanimously by Planning Commission. So just showing you a quick scenario. Here we have one existing unit. This assumes there's a large enough backyard or yard space to do this. We would have to allow the addition of one 800 square foot unit, and then our accessory dwelling unit ordinance interplays with that to allow one new ADU per main unit or principal unit. So now you've got effectively 4 units on one lot. Now, last time we were before you, we showed you what could happen without an ordinance in place. And again, this is because of the city's ADU ordinance and how it interplays with the implementation of SB 9. So we'll go through this step by step. So existing, you've got 1 unit. Proposed, the owner could split the lot into 2, remove the existing, and effectively build back 4 new principal units. And then each of those units would have an ADU for a total of 8 units on 2 lots. So the purpose of an ordinance is to clarify that and allow only 4 units across 2 lots, which is consistent with the intent of SB 9 as written. So in this scenario here, you'll see that this effectively created 3 new units on a lot where, again, only 1 was permitted previously. And this is with the ordinance that's before you this evening. In addition to that limitation, staff has also put forth additional Title 20 development standards that are all objective, which is consistent with what we can add per state law. So to kind of highlight some, we've got a limit of 800 square feet for each, which is the minimum requirement. We have to allow at least 800 square feet. We are employing an affordable housing requirement, so one of the new SB 9 units must be affordable to very low and low income households for a 30-year period, and that would require a covenant. And we are also looking at requiring an increased rear alley setback, which you'll see in the diagram there is 5 feet. State law does talk about a 4-foot rear setback. However, we are distinguishing the rear alley as being different and important to maintain because, as you know, especially on the peninsula and other locations, we'll get into the peninsula later because, again, Coastal Act is not superseded, so that's a bad example. But let's say Corona Del Mar, the north of Coast Highway, some of those alleys are rather narrow, so we want to make sure we're maintaining that maneuverability for vehicles. So urban lot splits, is a different provision of the law, but it does interplay with SB 9 housing developments. We have different development standards for urban lot splits, and we also have Title 19, a brand new chapter that talks about the procedure. The city does not have a procedure currently for ministerial parcel maps or parcel maps without a public hearing. So we had to put in some new procedures for that. So we're able to see that provision where we talk about maximum of 2 units per lot. So that's where we get that 4-unit cap. And more importantly, we've got access through a shared driveway and alley access required, obviously where there is an alley today. And what that's intended to do is prohibit the removal of on-street parking. So that diagram you have before you, we don't want a property owner to propose a new curb cut that effectively removes the on-street parking. We want the access to be maintained from the alley and over a shared driveway. So in that diagram, you'll see at the bottom right, that's effectively an access easement that's created. Another thing of note is we can still require development impact fees when it's an urban lot split. So we are requiring the in-lieu park dedication fee, which is currently set at $34,309 per new unit, and that does not apply to ADUs or JADUs, notably. I guess I'll clarify too. Lot line objective design standards is looking to prevent curved lot lines and funky lot configurations wherever possible. So looking for 90-degree angles, straight lot lines. Some additional requirements to note that we're including. Automatic sunset clause. So if state law changes, we don't want to continue perpetuating new SB 9 housing developments or urban lot splits. We're also looking to require deed restriction to put future owners on notice that they are purchasing an SB 9 housing unit. And it may have, state law prohibits short-term rentals, but we'd reiterate that in the deed restriction and also talk to affordability if there's an affordability requirement in place. As I alluded to earlier, we'll note that this does not supersede the Coastal Act, so it does not apply to the coastal zone until the LCP, the city's certified LCP, is amended to include SB 9 provisions. I want to include a slide to show what that looks like. So the coastal zone is shown in that shaded yellow. So again, an LCP amendment would be required to implement SB 9 in any of the coastal zone single-family neighborhoods. What that really means is that there's approximately 17,000 single-family zoned lots that could be eligible for SB 9, and this cuts that in half. So there's about 8,000 eligible lots until that LCP amendment comes online. So as far as next steps, obviously staff's recommendation is to introduce the ordinance for adoption and take it to second reading, July 26th. I'm available for questions, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ben. Hey, Councilwoman Brenner.
I would just like to say thank you. This looked like an untenable situation when it was passed, and we thought it was going to destroy our neighborhoods and our community. And it looks to me like you've really done a good job of putting in any limits that you can into this. And so I really appreciate the limit on lot splits to the number of units that you can have, the affordability requirements, the alley protection, the curb cut protection, and the fact that even the state that says no short-term rentals in these properties. So we really were panicked, I think, a lot about this when it first came down, and we thought that it was just going to completely change the complexion of our city. And I think you've done as good a job as it's possible to do in these circumstances. So I'd like to thank you very much.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Benjamin, did you say anything about CC&Rs? Did you mention that?
I did not mention that. At present, it's silent. The state law is silent. So we see much like the accessory dwelling unit legislation, which was eventually amended to circumvent or undermine private restrictions. There's nothing like that in place today, so staff believes that private CC&Rs do hold true.
Well, very good to know that. Also, I too commend you for trying to and succeeding in placing in there many objective standards that will help preserve the quality of our neighborhoods. And could you explain the LCP? Are we required to amend that, or are we just wait until Coastal Commission catches up with us, or what happened?
Well, thank you, Councilmember Dixon. So Coastal Commission has reached out to all the coastal cities and said, they are asking that the cities update their LCP. So, we will update our LCP. We just don't have a schedule yet of when that will occur. So currently right now in the coastal zone there, so we don't allow SB 9 projects to occur. And then from an LCP amendment, it's like every other project that we have that we're working on. So we'll just put it on our list that we'll get to.
And then one more question. Do we have any project applications for anything that SB 9 is permitting?
No, so we've had several inquiries in the city, but we have no applications pending.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Avery.
So currently, do we allow any lot splits in the city?
So currently, we actually have a general plan policy that prohibits residential subdivisions unless you're reverting back to underlying lot lines.
Okay.
Question. How about Corona Del Mar? Don't they split the lots there?
Please.
Yep, I don't know. So under this, ostensibly, someone that had a house on a regular sized house, say 2,500 square feet on a large lot, they could split their lot potentially and sell it off as raw land for building?
That's correct.
And that house that would subsequently be built could be any size above 800 square feet within the limits of code?
So as proposed, the ordinance would limit the house to 800 square feet.
No more than 800?
Correct.
That's not a good deal.
So the ordinance before you, we're being restrictive. So we're saying if you're going to do a lot split and you want to build a primary dwelling unit on that adjacent lot, you're maxed out at 800.
And wasn't SB 9 at least 800?
Correct. But we're capping at 800 because we can.
So it's 800 or nothing?
Yes.
Right.
So it's a restrictive
Brilliant.
ordinance. We're trying to preclude people from doing the project.
I know. It's great. Thank you.
So my son Cannon could put a mini house on one of these lots.
Exactly.
Yeah. Councilwoman Dixon, yes, that's right.
I think
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah,
Councilman.
mine was just to follow up on Brad's question. What about Corona Del Mar, where they split the lots and built 2 condos?
So those are airspace subdivisions. They're not physically subdividing the lot. They're subdividing the airspace and selling off ownership of the units,
Oh, okay.
which would be prohibited under our ordinance, by the way.
Which what?
Which would be prohibited under our ordinance, the lot split and the subsequent condominium.
How did
component.
that come about if it was prohibited? Or was this ordinance not in place then when that started, or?
So let me try to clarify. So typically you have a single-family home that gets demolished and they build a duplex. So then they put a condo map on it, and so you sell that airspace in each. For the SB9 projects, they can do their lot split, but they can't create condos on each of those parcels. They have to be detached dwelling units. So it'll be that example there. It'll be the detached primary and detached ADU. And you can't condo those. That you have to sell one parcel under SB9 and under this ordinance.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you. Well, let me just follow up on that. So you split your lot and you're limited to 800 square feet. Who is the owner of that? The original property owner or the property owner? They cannot sell that off then?
The owner cannot sell the unit, but if they split the lot, they can sell the other lot.
They can sell the other lot.
Correct.
Okay, I get that. And then when you go back to the 800 square feet, so essentially that's ADU size, right? So all of those additional units will be mini AD or just ADUs?
In somewhat, ADU ordinance of the city actually allows larger units than 800 square feet.
Oh, all right. So this is held at 800. That's
Correct.
good. Okay, thank you.
Final question. Could you do this again and again and again if you had a lot size large enough?
No, state law and our ordinance is consistent with state law, only allows one urban lot split. If you've done it before, you're precluded from doing it again for one lot.
Great. Okay, let's go out to the public on this item. Public comments on this item, please come forward.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. Regarding Councilwoman Dixon's question about the inapplicability currently of this to the coastal zone and our apparently general wish to preclude people from doing these things that SB 9 would allow, I understood from the staff that the Coastal Commission is encouraging cities to revise their coastal plans to include these provisions, but to the best of my knowledge, amendments to a certified local coastal program, such as we have, emanate from the city, not from the Coastal Commission. The city has to request an amendment. So I'm not clear on what leverage the Coastal Commission has to actually require us to initiate that amendment if we're not interested in initiating it. They may have some mechanism for forcing that when we ask for some other unrelated amendment, perhaps, but I don't know how they can tell us to ask, for us to ask to amend our own plan if we don't wish to. So I would hope you would ask for clarification about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this topic? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Yes. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Blom, seconded by Councilwoman Dixon. Let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 2022-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Title 19 subdivisions and Title 20 planning and zoning of the Newport Beach Municipal Code related to Senate Bill 9, housing developments and urban lot splits. Council members Brenner and Duffy. Oh, Councilmember Brenner. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Madam Clerk, please read the announcements for motions for reconsideration.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
All right, seeing no motions to reconsider, we're going to adjourn with Statement led by Councilwoman Brenner.
Yes, tonight we adjourn in memory of Elaine Linhoff, a Newport Beach resident since 1956, who passed away on June 22nd at the age of 92. Elaine was active in local causes throughout her life here in Newport Beach, including the city's youth employment program, the Philharmonic Society, and the Balboa Peninsula Point Association. For almost 50 years, she was a forceful voice for SPAWN, acronym for Stop Polluting Our Newport, or now Still Protecting Our Newport. And for many years, she was an active member of the Newport Beach Fire Department's CERT program, Community Emergency Response Team. She ran for Newport Beach City Council in 1994, winning her district but not the election. Elaine was well known to most residents of Peninsula Point and could be spotted nearly every day riding her bicycle and working in her garden. Her home and garden served as an impromptu background for visitors, taking selfies and photos of friends to post on social media, and even inspired a few paintings by local artists. Elaine seemed to have endless energy right up to her last days. She went on many week-long bike tours around the world with one of her close friends well into her 80s. She also enjoyed boogie boarding, the West Newport Jetty, and into her 80s as well. She was often recognized for her environmental activities, including a tree dedicated to her in Bonita Canyon Park, marked with a plaque. There is also a plaque in her name at the Newport Beach Environmental Center. Elaine was married to Ralph Linhoff until his passing in 2014. She is survived by her 2 children, Greg and Karen, 5 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, and she's certainly an inspiration to all the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.